Many speak of Paul Williams, the heart and soul, they called him, of the Temptations. But I don't think that it's been actually highlighted how important Paul Williams was to the success and the launching of the Temptations. Paul Williams was one of the founders, actually, of the Temptations, sort of similar to like Florence Ballard with the Supremes. But in the end, Paul was alone by himself, no longer a part of the Temptations, and unfortunately, he was no longer with us. Some say it's suicide, some say it wasn't. Let's look a little deeper into this story. Paul Williams was born on July 2nd, 1939, in Birmingham, Alabama. He was the son of Sophia and Rufus Williams, a gospel singer in a gospel music vocal group called the Ensley Jubilee Singers. He met Eddie Kendricks in elementary school. Supposedly, the two first encountered each other in a fist fight after Williams dumped a bucket of mop water on Kendricks. Both boys shared a love of singing and sang in their church choir together. As teenagers, Williams, Kendricks, and Kel Osborne, along with Willie Waller, performed in a secular singing group known as the Cavaliers, with dreams of making it big in the music industry. In 1957, Williams, Kendricks, and Osborne left Birmingham to start careers, leaving Waller behind. Now known as the Primes, the trio moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and eventually found a manager in Milton Jenkins, who moved the group to Detroit, Michigan. Although the Primes never recorded, they were successful local performers and even launched a spin-off female group called the Primettes, who later became the Supremes. In 1961, Kel Osborne moved to California, and the Primes disbanded. Kendricks returned to Alabama, but visited Paul in Detroit shortly after. While on this visit, he and Paul had learned that Otis Williams, head of a rival Detroit act known as The Distance, had two openings in his group's lineup. Paul Williams and Kendricks joined Otis Williams, Melvin Franklin, and Elbridge Bryant to form the Elgins, who signed to the local Motown label in 1961 after first changing their name to the Temptations. Although the group now had a record deal, Paul Williams and his bandmates endured a long series of failed singles before finally hitting the Billboard Top 20 in 1964 with The Way You Do the Things You Do. More hits quickly followed, including My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and I Know I'm Losing You. Williams sang lead on several of the group's songs and served as the main lead singer during the group's early years. His early leads include Your Wonderful Love, 1961, Slow Down Heart, 1962, I Want a Love I Can See, 1963, and Oh Mother of Mine in 1961, the group's first single. Also, Farewell My Love in 1963, both shared with Eddie Kendricks. Considered the Temptations' best dancer, Williams served as the group's original choreographer, devising routines for his group and the Supremes. Most notably, their trademark Stop in the Name of Love routine, before Cody Atkins took over that role for all of Motown's acts. Williams' later leads on Temptation songs include Just Another Lonely Night, 1965, No More Water in the Well, 1967, a cover version of Hey Girl, 1969, and his signature song Don't Look Back, 1965. Williams also sang lead with Dennis Edwards, who joined in 1968 on Motown's first Grammy Award winner, Cloud Nine. One of his best-known lead performances is his standout live performance of For Once in My Life, from the television special TCB, originally broadcast on December 9, 1968 on NBC. The live version of the song Don't Look Back is also frequently cited as one of his standout performances. He also took over the lead vocal for live performances of My Girl following David Ruffin's departure from the group. Williams suffered from sickle cell anemia, which frequently wreaked havoc on his physical health. In 1965, Williams began an affair with Winnie Brown, hairstylist for the Supremes and a relative of Supremes member Florence Ballard. In love with Brown, but still devoted to his wife and children, Williams was also depressed because Cole Atkins' presence now made Williams' former role as choreographer essentially, but not completely, obsolete. Life on the road was starting to take its toll on Williams as well, and having previously consumed nothing stronger than milk, he began to drink alcohol heavily, namely Courvoisier, which, according to Otis Williams, was hard to take. In the spring of 1969, Williams and Brown opened a celebrity fashion boutique in downtown Detroit. The business was not as successful as planned, and Williams soon found himself owing more than $80,000 in taxes. His health had deteriorated to the point that he would sometimes be unable to perform, suffering from combinations of exhaustion and pain which he combated with heavy drinking. Each of the other four temptations did what they could to help Williams, alternating between raiding and draining his alcohol stashes, personal interventions, and keeping oxygen tanks backstage. But Williams' health, as well as the quality of his performances, continued to decline, and he refused to see a doctor. Otis Williams and the other Temptations decided to resort to enlisting an on-hand fill-in for Paul Williams, Richard Street, then lead singer of fellow Motown act The Monitors, and formerly lead singer of The Distance, was hired to travel with the Temptations and sing all of Williams' parts, save for Williams' special numbers such as Don't Look Back and For Once in My Life from backstage behind a curtain. When Williams was not well enough to go on, Street took his place on stage. In April 1971, Williams was finally persuaded to go see a doctor. The doctor found a spot on Williams' liver and advised him to retire from the group altogether. Williams left the group and Street became his permanent replacement. In support of helping Williams get back on his feet, the Temptations continued to pay Williams his same 1/5 share of the group's earnings and kept Williams on their payroll as an advisor and choreographer. And Williams continued to help the group with routines and dance moves for the next 2 years. By early 1973, Williams made his return to Motown's Hitsville, USA recording studios and began working on solo material. Kendricks, who had quit the Temptations just before Williams left, produced and co-wrote Williams' first single, Feel Like Giving Up, which was to have been issued on Motown's Gordian print with Once You Had a Heart as its B-side. However, after Williams' death was ruled a suicide in August 1973, Motown decided to shelve the sides because the song Feel Like Giving Up was just too literal to bear, and the single was not released. On August 17, 1973, Paul Williams was found dead in an alley in the car, having just left the new house of his then-girlfriend after an argument. He was said to have had a .34 caliber gun next to his body. His death was ruled a suicide by the coroner. Williams had expressed suicidal thoughts to Otis Williams and Melvin Franklin months before his death. The circumstances surrounding Williams' death caused the Williams family to suspect that some form of foul play was the actual cause of Williams' death. According to details in the coroner's report, there were 3 reasons to suspect foul play. 1, Williams had used his right hand to shoot himself on the left side of his head. 2, a bottle of alcohol was found near Williams' left side as if he had dropped it while being shot. 3. The gun used in the shooting was found to have fired 2 shots, only one of which had killed Williams. As a member of the Temptations, Paul Williams was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989 and the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 1999. Also, the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame in 2013. Both of his solo recordings were later released by Motown on Temptations-related compilations in the 80s and 90s. I just find it to be very, let's say, insensitive to dismiss Paul Williams the way that I feel he's been dismissed. From what we hear, he had played a pivotal role in making the Temptations the successful group that it was. Even in the movie, you see that he kept on pushing everybody to rehearse and have dance routines along with their songs, which made them quite a unique group because the Temptations were known for their dance moves. And it's very similar to what happened to Florence Ballard as far as her playing a huge role in forming the Supremes and then later on being dismissed and dying afterwards, not too long after leaving the group. I also feel that it's quite suspicious given the details surrounding Paul Williams' death. A lot of these people in the industry, their deaths are never explained fully. Like, it's always some mystery towards it, some mystery lingering on in the story involving their untimely deaths. In this series that I will be doing on this channel, I will be covering the untimely deaths of the most unrecognized industry figures that we love so dearly, but we feel did not get a fair chance to really be who they were and to show us the talents that they had. After Paul's passing, later on down the line, his son, Kenneth Williams, went to prison for strangling his great aunt with a telephone cord in 1989, the same year his father Paul was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Before entering prison, the younger Williams asked his sister to save his share of royalty checks he inherited from his dad, Paul Williams, one of the original members of the Temptations. The superstar Motown group known for the hits My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone. I figured I was well off, Kenneth Williams, 49, told the Detroit News. The Redford Township man was released from prison in July after serving more than 20 years and discovered the money, estimated at more than $200,000, was gone. His sister Paula Williams spent it, according to a complaint he filed against her in federal court in Detroit. The accusation serves as another sad footnote to the legacy of the Motown legend of Paul Williams, the baritone singer who choreographed the group's stylish dance moves and who died in 1973 under murky circumstances. And it is the latest in a long line of fights over one of the most consistently lucrative commodities to come out of Detroit in 51 years, Motown royalty. The accusations add a new layer of drama to one of the most successful and tragic acts in the Motown record stable. It is a stable filled with stars whose success and tragedies, including premature deaths, murder, drug addiction, and legal woes, have inspired Broadway musicals, TV movies, and reams of tell-all books. Federal and Wayne County court records expose a fight within a family dogged by disaster in the decades after Paul Williams and 4 friends topped the charts. Thanks to all those hits, Williams' heirs split about $80,000 a year in Motown royalties based on sales of the group's music, Paul Williams' likeness, and other rights. The royalties are paid out twice a year. Motown money fights, which are not unique to the Williams family, are somewhat ironic to Peter Benjaminson, author of The Lord Supreme, The Life of Dream Girl, Florence Ballard. When Motown started, there weren't any significant royalties for most people, he said. The average rock star had one hit, then tried for another one, failed and went to work at a factory. One of the big surprises for Motown and everyone who worked for it is how long the songs have lasted and sold. It's hard for Paul Williams Jr., who was 7 years old when his father died, to say whether the royalties are a blessing or a curse. Money, Paul Jr. said. What money does the people? I don't understand. His sister Paula declined comment through her lawyer. The Williams family has been fighting for Motown royalties since August 17, 1973, the day Paul Williams died. He was coping with health and personal problems, and at that time was estranged from his wife, Mary Agnes Williams. A divorce was pending. In 1987, 14 years after he died, the family reopened Paul Williams' estate to pursue royalties owed by Motown and determine his rightful heirs, a complicated task because Williams died without a will. Williams' family accused Motown of not paying any royalties after the singer died. The family claimed it was owed $195,000, but Motown said the family could not pursue royalties that were more than 6 years old. The family eventually settled in March 1988 for $96,520. That covered the years 1981 through June 1987. Next, Wayne County probate judge Joseph Herman had to divide the royalty pie and determine shares and heirs. Williams had 3 daughters and 2 sons, Sarita, Paula, and Mary, and Kenneth and Paul Jr. with wife Mary Agnes. Before he died, Paul Williams acknowledged fathering a 6th child, son Paul Williams Lucas. The royalty pie was about to be divided when a 7th child surfaced, a son born in 1968 to one of Paul Williams' girlfriends. Derek Vineyard, who was 5 when Paul Williams died, wanted a share of the Motown royalties. Paul Williams denied that Vineyard was an heir. Paula Williams, rather. The Motown star's brother, however, disagreed. Johnny Williams said his brother never denied being Vineyard's father, according to a 1988 deposition transcript filed in the probate case. Johnny Williams said he saw Paul and Vineyard's mother on dates at the Fox Theater and 20 Grand nightclub, and there were rumors Paul Williams had fathered twins in Cleveland. He's a breeder, Johnny Williams said of his brother during the deposition. The judge concluded Vineyard was an heir and divided the late Motown star's past and future royalties. Paul Williams' widow would get 1/3. The 7 children would split the rest equally. In January 1989, the family agreed to have Paula parcel out the royalty checks to her 4 siblings and mother twice a year. The 2 half-siblings received their money directly from the record company. Kenneth Williams didn't have long enough to enjoy the windfall. On July 18, 1989, he killed his 81-year-old great-aunt Mary Bryant inside her bungalow on Detroit's northwest side. She was shot in the head and strangled with a telephone cord, which a neighbor found wrapped 3 times around the woman's throat, according to a published report. Kenneth Williams was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison. I was out of my mind on crack cocaine, Williams said. I was out of control. Prison basically saved my life. Young Kenneth had lived a charmed life before the death of his father. Kenneth spent nights on the road with his father and the group in Las Vegas, Miami, and Atlanta. Where the show went, I went, he said. Kenneth, nicknamed Boss Man by his dad, spent afternoons learning from Temptations frontman Dennis Edwards how to make paper airplanes, which he threw out a window from an upper floor of Motown headquarters along Woodland. Kenneth was 11 when his father died. The outgoing youngster turned angry, rebellious, and was put out of every school in Detroit. I was lost, he said. I had lost my best friend. At 19, he smoked his first joint. At 25, he tried cocaine. At 27, that took me to another place, he said. That's how old he was when he strangled his great aunt. He turned 28 just before heading to prison. I was trying to deal with why I was in prison and what made me go there, he said. The money, I wasn't even thinking about it. He thought the cash was safe during the 7,536 days he spent in prison. He was released July 23rd after serving more than 20 years. So, when there's a tragedy in one's life, it can trickle on down to the rest of the family and throughout the family. Paul Williams' story was a very sad story. Him dying at such a young age is a very, very, very sad tragedy. And we lost another treasured artist whom most of us loved, and they were the soundtrack to most of our parents' lives. I know of the Temptations through my mom, and she wasn't even American. She's Panamanian, but I know every song from the Temptations from my mother playing them, and she still plays them to this day. So I would like to say rest in peace to Paul Williams, and I will be back with another video soon. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.